Thank you very much, Mina. Dr. Johansson. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. Um, Three male speakers, although in the era of Barbie, I think it should be a kennel. Maybe not. Bunch of dogs. Need to get my presentation up here. So, let's see. Yep, in this first slide, there's my email address and Twitter handle. If you want to share with anybody outside, please do. Tag me. It will be nice to know what you're saying about what I'm saying. And if there is an opportunity for further conversation and dialogue, feel free to email me at any point. I do answer my email. Um, it's very strange to be talking about sustainability with many of us having flown thousands of miles to be here. It's one of these paradoxes, isn't it? Yes. I do not have any financial relationship to disclose. The CARE unit, which is our research group, has since inception in 2004, next year it will be 20 years, we decided not to take any for-profit funding for our research, and we're still operating. And all my income derives from being a specialist at the Mayo Clinic. This is what Dr. Johansson kindly mentioned, The Patient Revolution. That book, Why We Revolt, came out a few years back. All the millions of dollars in royalties that I get from this book. That was too loud, Kristen. You shouldn't have laughed that much. It was not supposed to be that funny, but anyway, it goes directly to The Patient Revolution. I chair the board of, and I don't derive any income from that activity either. Let's talk a little bit about care. We mention care all the time, but we sometimes don't stop to think about what it really means. It means it's a practice, something that many of us in the room have the privilege of doing, and a disposition to care for other people. It involves a couple of actions, one noticing and the other one responding. Noticing alone is not enough, but it's very important. It starts by paying attention, being present, identifying the situation of the person needing our care in high definition, and noticing not only what is the need, but also what strengths they bring to actually improve their situation. Noticing empathy is not enough. For care, we need empathy to grow hands and do something about it, and so responding is important. Responding creates the possibility that that person's situation can get better because of what we might do today. Deciding to respond opens up the opportunity for us to invent action that will advance the patient's situation. So it's noticing and responding. It's also caregiving and care receiving. Caregiving is something ideally done with the patient, not to the patient, and it's ideally done with competence so that we do more good than harm, and with compassion. And it's important that we also have care receiving, because it's the only way we know that the response that we've managed to co-create ideally with patients is pertinent, adequate, and desirable. So care is also caregiving and care receiving. To care is human. There's an enormous temptation to think about care as something that AI can do, or institutions can do, or governments can do, but it's only people that can do it. All of us are here because somebody chose to care for us since the moment we were born. The mission of caring for and about each other is infinite. It will never end, and it will always exceed our capacity to do it. So it is a challenge. And the capacity to care, however, is not. And I'll make the case that our capacity to care is a renewable resource. However, there are challenges. This is a paper from Mark Linzer and his colleagues showing that the conditions in which we sometimes have to care are not ideal. The line in the middle in gray is the average burnout rate among health professionals. And you can see that that average hides essentially two groups. a group that is much more burned out and a group that's much less burned out. And the group that is much more burned out works in environments in which their care is not valued. Those environments are harried and chaotic. There's little control over the conditions of work, and there's the absence of teamwork. So the conditions in which we care for patients is very important for the human sustainability of our health professionals. And every one of our countries has a major problem of human sustainability of healthcare. Our health professionals, some of them have quit healthcare, are no longer available, and it's a significant challenge. 40% of our health professionals, give or take, have expressed an intent to leave clinical practice or have left clinical practice, leaving more work for those who are left behind and signaling young people that this is not a career you may want to join, which creates a significant problem because, again, to care is human. AI is not going to get us out of this problem. When we meet patients, we spend about 40% of the time looking at the computer screen, documenting care rather than caring. We enter a patient's agenda within 11 seconds of they stating why they're there. 11 seconds, I learned this during COVID because to hand wash, you have to sing happy birthday twice, and that's about 20 seconds, so 11 seconds is one happy birthday. And that's how fast we interrupt patients when we are asking them why they're there. Only 40% of patients get to state why they're in clinical practice, with the clinician feeling pressure to do many things during that encounter, limiting the opportunity to hear why patients are there. And 40% of our patients with chronic conditions, the most common type of patients that we see now in developed countries and soon in developing countries in primary care and in specialty ambulatory care, 40% have unsustainable burdens of treatment that they and their families have to carry. I keep numbers simple, 40% for everything. This is Maria Luisa. She's also from Peru, like I am, and she's come with me in many of these talks now for almost a decade. And this is a picture that her granddaughter took, and you can see Maria Luisa and pay attention to her expression. She's at home, and look in front of her are all these pill boxes. She has all this medicine in front of her, a lot of health care. And as you see Maria Luisa, you think, she seems lonely, tired, depressed, overwhelmed, but perhaps many of you are not going to say, well, she looks healthy. And how is it that Maria Luisa ends up with all those pills? Well, given that we don't get to know Maria Luisa very well, we get to respond to the things that are common to people like her. So she has diabetes and kidney disease and hypertension and back pain and depression, and we might respond to the biology that she holds in common with other people. In fact, many of my colleagues speak of precision medicine with excitement, but they're really talking about the biology of what is going through Maria Luisa's life. But in responding only to her biology, we are not responding to Maria Luisa, we're responding with care for people like Maria Luisa. And that is not the job. The job is to respond with care for Maria Luisa. And that requires us that we develop a deep understanding in high definition, not only of her biology, but also of her biography. Where is she coming from? What is the story of her life? What is her life now? How is her life interacting with the treatment and the conditions that she has? How are these conditions, the symptoms and the treatments interfering perhaps with her life? And what are her goals and priorities moving forward? Without understanding this, our response to her will be generic. And generic responses to people with chronic diseases accumulate and create significant work for them. Work that is invisible. And as a result, our healthcare organizations find that there's a great opportunity to actually ask patients and family to do more. And so we ask them, to organize their information, ask prioritized questions, record the visit, review the medical record for errors, use the portal and transmit their data, self-monitor, self-manage, educate themselves, manage their appointments, prescriptions, bills, pre-authorizations, denials, delays, overcome bias against their illness, class, and identity, keep everyone informed, advocate for themselves and others, and to wait. And wait and wait. Where I work, we have to wait for insurance to pre-authorize tests and treatments. Patients have to wait for the appointments for those tests. They have to wait to find out what the answer from those tests is. They have to wait for the appointment in which we decide what we're going to do. They have to wait in the waiting room, wait in the doctor's office, wait, 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 wait. All that constitutes work that the patients have to then mobilize capacity to implement. And where does capacity for patients come from? It comes from a sense of purpose in their life. Yet many, particularly elderly people, when we ask them what are the sources of joy in your life, they draw a blank. Sense of resilience, literacy, which is not just understanding instructions and navigating the system, signage, but it's also knowing when to take exception. You're supposed to take a pill with an empty stomach. I just took the first pill in the morning. Is my stomach still empty? Should I now wait 2 hours before I take the second pill? Or can I take both pills at the same time? It's 10 o'clock. I should have taken my pill first thing in the morning. 10 o'clock. Can I still take it, or should I skip a day and take it tomorrow? That sort of ability to understand the exceptions to the rules, become expert patients. Physical health, mental health, financial health, and social connections and relationships contribute to the capacity to do all this work. But that assumes that patients have only one role in life, and that is to be patients. Most of this workload will be dedicated to be people, to live. And we have to be very respectful of that capacity. And when patients don't do everything we ask them to do, we respond with cruelty by labeling them, not their circumstance, as non-compliant, a label that's sticky and that prevents them from getting care as they go forward. This that I'm describing is something called industrialized healthcare, a healthcare that keeps patients as a blur, only in their biology, that allows us to respond in a generic and sometimes burdensome way, and oftentimes with cruelty. This is unacceptable. And we need to work together to change those conditions to promote care. The key first step to make care more humanly sustainable is to focus on developing the opportunity to have unhurried conversations with our patients. People ask me what's the most important innovation in healthcare. Not AI. It's the unhurried conversation. It's in the unhurried conversation that we get to appreciate the patient's situation in high definition and respond by co-creating with them a sensible resolution, a sensible path forward, which is what they come in for in the first place. But we don't have time for this. We don't have capacity to actually have an unhurried conversation with our patients. So it may be helpful to go one step before and recognize that in many of our countries, we've decided to respond to problems of health with professional care. This is in part because we have societies in which we are emphasizing independence. We're emphasizing productive economy, productive work. We are making sure that care is mostly the responsibility of women, even though it's the expectation of everybody. And that this work of care is something that is invisible. COVID did something for us, which is to make the care that sustains our economies visible. We call them essential workers, only for a few days, then we forgot. So one way of actually creating a more sustainable healthcare is to expand the space of common care, the care that we do for ourselves and for each other. The care that, so when we talk about prevention, sometimes we're thinking about what can we do to people so that they won't get sick. But this is an opportunity to think about how do we create societies, how do we foster societies in which we are caring for and about each other, where we celebrate our interdependence, where we focus on the relational aspects of our economy, where we actually democratize the care responsibility. If we all expect care, then we should all be caring for each other, not just women. And we recognize, not just with celebrations at 7 o'clock at night clapping from buildings, but recognize with actual hard dollars the work that people do when they dedicate each other to care. What else can we do upstream? Well, a lot of the busyness of healthcare comes from strong recommendations of must-do things. And I think it's time for a moratorium on strong recommendations that actually make us do too much. And one of the ways of slowing that push particularly on frontline clinicians, to do more. Will be discussed in a workshop following after this kennel later today. Which is going to focus on this idea of the time needed to treat. A wonderful, wonderful idea that Dr. Johansson has put forward, which allows us to estimate when somebody gives a recommendation, how much of the time, a very limited time that we have, very precious time that we have, will have to be dedicated to implement that. You want to know more about time needed to treat, come to the workshop. But it's very clear that if we estimated some of the things that seem reasonable, like, oh, GPs should talk to their patients about being more physically active so they don't gain weight. That would be so sensible and such a great use of our time. But it becomes massively unsustainable with very unknown or unclear benefit. So what else can we do? In our own environments, we need to make sure that we identify the pathologies of care. Hurry, blur, cruelty, burden. And we look to change those from hurry to elegance. Elegance is like a ballerina or a gymnast, where there is no waste, but there's also no haste, no hurry. We look at high definition instead of seeing patients as a blur. Responsiveness instead of cruelty. The most common form of cruelty in healthcare is indifference. And move toward from burdensome care to minimally disruptive care. And once we do that, we need to work to radically change the conditions for care in our environments. We talked about this already. And my colleague Marlene Kuhneman and an international group put forward this manifesto, which if we are able to create all those conditions, when we are patients and clinicians together, what should we try to work on? And we should try to work on making care fit. Patients and clinicians must collaborate in designing care plans that maximally respond to each patient's unique situation and priorities while minimally disrupting their lives and their loves. Making healthcare more sustainable includes eradicating. In this case, this is a group of people that were asked to wait, and of course they just have their shoes waiting in line, not themselves, to eradicate the cruelty of our healthcare system. So there are ways of designing clinics and spaces for careful and kind care, paying attention to the way the facilities are set up. So anywhere from how the space is set up, for instance, making sure that your doors are soundproof so that there will be fewer interruptions, that your electronic health record doesn't have pop-ups that call for attention when the attention should be to the patient and so forth. There are design features that one can take into account to do this. And we have to make sure that in the spaces in which we work, we can take care of each other. Health professionals struggle to make human healthcare more sustainable. We have to find ways of caring for and about each other, readying us to care for and about our patients. Because we need to cultivate care. It's in cultivating care, paradoxically, that we're going to create the capacity to care better for our patients. Because as we saw again and again and again, when we were successful in helping the patients, we recognized the smile on the caregivers, and we recognized that care is ultimately a renewable resource. Of course, the kind of care that I'm talking about is careful and kind care for all. Thank you.